Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Immortality Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Jake, here with Josh. Hi, Josh.
Hello, Jake.
Unfortunately, our Gaiwan could not be here today. We have a Japanese, what's called a kyusu. It's a Japanese side handle pot. So, of course, that means we're going to be drinking some Japanese tea today. So this one, as you can see, it's a little more like a Western style teapot. It's larger. There's no tea basket. This one has a strainer built in. The more sophisticated or expensive ones will have the strainer will be built into the clay. This will do the job just fine though. So the tea we're going to be drinking is Yabukita Sencha. Yabukita is the varietal and Sencha is the style of tea. So as usual, I'm going to preheat the vessels, just rinse everything with hot water. Now the water I'm using, it's not boiling water. I just took it to 175. The Japanese green tea is being fairly delicate. And also I'm going to brew this a little differently too. I'm not going to do short steeps, or not especially short steeps. Do you have any questions before we start here, Josh?
I don't know Japanese green teas
Sure.
at all, really. And so this is a really good exploration moment for me. So
Yeah, they're processed pretty different than Chinese green teas. Of course, with green tea, there's what's called a kill green. So that's what stops the enzymes which cause the leaves to oxidize. Basically, it fries those enzymes. So instead of turning into like oolong or black tea, instead of like withering and turning like kind of brown or black or whatever, it stays green. So I'm not gonna fill this quite all the way. Of course, tea brewing is always up to the individual. I'm gonna do. I would guess that was probably 200 milliliters, 250 milliliters water. That was 8.5 grams of tea. I know that. Let's just do this for about a minute or minute and a half, and see where we are. With the kill green, Chinese green teas tend to be fried or baked. Japanese green teas are steamed for about 15 to 20 seconds. So, it's heat, the same idea, like you're using heat, but just through steam. So that does really alter the flavor and the character of the tea.
And then is that why when you steep a Japanese green tea, you do it at a lower temperature just to preserve all that extra flavor?
As a result, they are more delicate too. These do tend to stand to heat less well than Chinese green teas. Chinese green teas, you still don't want to use boiling water, but you want to use even cooler water for Japanese green teas.
I mean, it totally makes sense. A lot of these flavors and a lot of the smells and the aromas, they come from volatile organic compounds. And those volatile organic compounds, disappear with heat and dissipate in heat and different forms of stress. Yeah. So it totally makes sense that if the Japanese tea was processed to preserve all of these gentle elements that exist in the plant, so that when you brew it gently, you basically taste those elements.
You want to smell the leaves?
Wow.
What?
I mean, it's completely different than a Chinese or a Taiwanese tea, and in a good way.
It's a very different style.
Oh, it's like umami with fruit. So it's like a fruity seaweed.
Yep.
I'm excited.
So let's just see who we are. These are so tricky to brew too. Honestly, it took me a long time to learn how to brew Japanese green tea as well.
So for everyone listening and watching, if you choose to drink Japanese green teas,
oh, so good though.
Dial in the exact details of your brewing process.
Yeah. This I feel like I might have actually oversteeped just a hair.
Wow, it's got this huge middle note, like.
There's a bit of a pininess, right? Like a resiny pininess. Also, I mean, obviously, like floral umami.
It's like piney seaweed.
Yeah.
With like, is it the ocean quality? Is that like what is
what?
It tastes. There's some like vegetable middle note I can't quite get.
Yeah, I think like maybe like I don't know, snow peas or something, or like.
Yep.
You think so?
Yeah, like peas or like snap peas. Possibly what are those soybean
edamame?
Edamame.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely crisp. Yeah, it has like a kelp or kombu flavor.
Yeah, snap pea. Snap pea.
I think These ones that we get they tend to have a lot more floral character as opposed to a lot of the ones that you see on the market. So Yabukita is the most common cultivar in Japan, basically for tea. Most senchas, I would say, are Yabukita. There's also a few other main varietals, Semidori, Asanoka. We carry a few of these online, so you can explore. We have a fairly good selection of Japanese greens. But Yabukita is, it's supposed to grow pretty well. Its growing conditions are pretty forgiving, and it has a good umami. That's why it's so popular. Other ones are a little more finicky to grow and brew well.
The leaves look smaller.
Fairly small leaves, yeah, for sure. They are rolled pretty delicately after the steaming process, but they're also, because they're so delicate, they're also subject to breakage when it's brewed, actually.
Oh, wow. Do you think it's the variety of tea plant that makes the leaf smaller, or
pretty much
or
no, it's the processing.
the processing? Okay.
Yeah, like I said, it's they actually break apart like when they're being brewed, which releases flavor as it's doing that. So another like kind of like weird thing about Japanese tea, which I couldn't give you an exact scientific reason for, is you want to steep the second and third steeps a little shorter than the first steep. I think it's because it's already open. I think it has to do with the way the leaves break after. There's a little more surface area. Yeah, I'm just going to do, I think, 30 seconds on this one. I'm not using the full capacity of the pot. I really just went like maybe like a few millimeters like above the leaf there. And let's just see how we did there. So that was 30 seconds. Again, these teas tend to get a little stronger.
This is really interesting because like normally we don't time. We're very much general time zone. One Mississippi, two Mississippi.
Yeah, usually it's like, well, usually you're trying to steep like 5-10 seconds, and then like if you know it's getting a little weak, you just kind of feel it out, and like in Gong Fu style brewing and a Gaiwan, you just kind of like maybe go to like 20 seconds or 30 seconds. Like you usually don't steep longer than like a minute. And
yeah, this is really cool to see because if you're thinking about getting into Japanese green teas, or if you're into Japanese green teas, the delicacy in the brewing process to bring out the flavors is extremely important.
Yeah, and this kind of pot really, I think, is like the best option. I mean, there's a few different styles. Like this is called a Kyusu. That just refers to the side handle. But there's ones, they're kind of, sort of the same shape, maybe like without the handle, smaller spout, yada yada. You don't want to use a Gaiwan because you can see the guy, for like video watchers, you can see the Gaiwan. It's just hard to like create a small enough space while pouring water that would like actually filter the leaves out. You could use a Western style teapot. That's totally fine. The advantage of this, of course, is that you're giving the leaves full room to expand, the full range to expand in the pot, instead of being like trapped in a tea filter.
It is totally kind of weird how the first steep was about a minute and a half, and those flavors came out, and this steep was only 30 seconds.
This steep's a little better too, honestly.
Yeah, and then the flavor in this is
it's more mellow.
Yeah. So just for everyone out there listening, if you've never drank a green tea, be aware of those numbers in brewing.
It's a good place to start. Yeah, what 175 degree water. And just a minute and a half. Oh, man, he shorted me.
Oh, man, I'm sorry. Looks like we're going to have to make some more.
Okay, hold on. Let's restart my timer here. But yeah, this is super nice, rich and mellow. So this particular sencha, we get ours from an importer who works with who does more single field teas than most senchas Gyokuro teas usually find. So in Japan, usually the model is that the government buys up a lot of like tea leaves from like a certain area or number of areas, and then just kind of mixes them all together, and people just buy them at auction. So it's pretty rare to find a single field tea. So what that means is this tea came from one field, one farmer.
That's really interesting that the government would do that. It's almost like treating tea as a collective. It's like if we average the sums of all the different crops, then there will be this like equivalent flavor.
It's a bit of like a Japanese mentality, right? Sort of a Confucian.
Yeah, like the emperor or something thought of it, or interesting.
Yeah. So this one is from Kagoshima, which is, I think, I think I believe it's it's on the southern tip of the main island, and it's from Makizono village. Harvested this spring, of course.
You know, I want to visit all these places. I mean, all these places
Telling
we
me.
talk about, we need to have like a tea helicopter, and we can just travel the world. Like, all right, here we go.
Okay, well, when our budget increases, well, we can take the show on the road. But until then,
For everyone listening, please make a donation
oh yeah, right, that'd be great.
and put a little note there that says "for the helicopter."
The tea helicopter, yeah. So I'm just gonna do another 30-second steep here.
Okay. This is really interesting and fascinating for me because Jake knows a lot more about the Japanese teas than I know. Having such a wide spectrum of resources to pull from is really good for us on the podcast.
Yeah.
And Jake's drinking tea like I'm talking like every week. Every week, Jake.
Every day.
Yeah, every day, every week. Every day of the week,
Yeah.
which means, Jake is drinking and trying teas. And
Not
sometimes,
counting the times I drink 5 teas in a day.
yeah, and sometimes they're not good. Like he's just literally trying teas.
Often they are not good. When you're sampling teas to buy, often they are not good. It's something like 1 in 20 or 30 is my experience of the teas that I try that I actually want us to get.
So the listeners and the watchers of the podcast really benefit because we're not just talking out of, our own opinionated self, but we're actually speaking from a place of experience. And especially when it comes to Jake and like just the nuances of Japanese green teas and really all the teas, we're really trying to take you to the front lines of tea drinking around the world.
The work we do, and I'm not the only one who does this at Trident, but the work we do at Trident, a lot of it is filtering the teas. We don't buy just anything, so it takes time. I'm doing the hard work of drinking bad tea, so you don't have to, essentially.
And then after that work is done, then it's about finding and going to the source.
Yeah.
It's not about stopping at the middleman. It's like finding the tea association.
Yeah.
The tea association leads to the farmer.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you're really
Exactly.
a direct supply chain.
Yeah.
Farmer
Yeah.
to your kitchen.
Yeah, like we know the name of this farmer. Yeah, it's pretty cool. We get stuff from him every year because we know it's going to be good.
So we're on the third steep now.
Third steep. I'm probably not going to push it beyond this. Really, we could try and see what it does.
So really the Japanese teas, because of the delicacy of the processing to preserve all the flavors of the plant, really, and the growth process and the environment it was grown in, the terroir.
Mm-hmm.
So these teas are really fast steepers then.
I mean, we're also not drinking it Kung Fu style, right? Okay. We've steeped it a total of 2.5 minutes at this point. It's been in the hot water for 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, and the leaves look pretty well hydrated.
They blew up. Yeah, it was a tiny amount of leaves I put in. Like,
I mean, that's huge.
yeah, and it's like feeling like like a third of the pot now. All right, well let's for science do one more. That steep was maybe a little like less aromatic than the first two.
Yeah, it's definitely going into the kombu seaweed realm.
Yeah, but it was nice. It was smooth. It was green tasting, sweet. My inclination is to go 45 seconds on this one. Any questions about Japanese tea in general or this tea?
It's really unique.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I see why, people will really get into the Japanese green teas,
Sure.
or the Taiwanese, or the, everyone's got their genre.
Mm-hmm.
How would you suggest this tea to people? Because it is such a unique tea and flavor.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to understand. Japan is an island nation. It's a historically isolated island. They didn't start doing the loose leaf thing until I believe like the 18th century. Before then, it was matcha. They were several hundred years behind Chinese tea drinkers and going from powder tea to leaf tea.
Oh wow!
How I would suggest this tea to someone? I think if you're interested in like Japanese culture, especially if you like tea, but like something unique. I mean, the main differences between this and Chinese green tea, I think. These tend to be maybe like less nutty floral, but more like creamy, oceany, smooth, just to paint like very, very broad strokes.
I grew up eating a lot of different types of seafood, shrimp, squid,
That's not bad.
octopus, fish. Mm-hmm. And it seems like if you're a fan of seafood and that savoriness in the seafood, And those kind of flavor profiles come through in the Japanese green tea. And then what about for matcha drinkers? Because I feel like a lot of people might be matcha drinkers,
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
but they don't necessarily know about the sencha and the different grades of the other loose leaf.
Yeah. So like I was saying, matcha is reflects an earlier style of tea drinking. Originally, all tea was like basically powdered, pressed into bricks, and people would shave it off and brew it that way, brew it like matcha. And then matcha survived in the form of the Japanese tea ceremony. But now it's become kind of a worldwide phenomenon. Like matcha lattes are like hugely popular. You know, matcha in milk instead of water. Like everywhere has that. Even like Taiwan and like China, and I even had like Vietnamese matcha. I really like.
What was that like? Was that one?
It was okay.
Yeah, it was one of the not so good.
It was okay.
Yeah, it was okay. Well, that's good.
I would have drinking it rather than not drinking tea, but
yeah.
But yeah, I think there are like if you enjoy the flavor, some of the flavors of matcha too, but like maybe want like a more authentic or lighter drink, or just want something that's just tea but has like some of those elements like the richness, the sweetness that you get from matcha, that kind of tea flavor. I think if you haven't had a good sencha before, then you should definitely give this a look.
That makes a lot of sense actually. So matcha drinkers, Japanese tea, and these senchas and these other varieties from Japan might be a good evolution point. But for beginners, I don't think just the temperatures involved with the brewing of this, I feel like this is probably like a mid-level to more advanced.
Yeah, I think so. You can do it pretty simply if you just have like a regular teapot, and you can even just put like a half inch of boiling of cold. You can put a half inch of cold water on the bottom of your boiling water, and that should get you to like about the right temperature. If that's easier for you, if you don't have like an electric kettle that does temperatures, and then just like set a timer for a minute and a half, and pull the basket out. It should be fine. Like
there's ways to make quick tea hacks, like get a liquid beverage thermometer for $10.
Yeah.
And basically heat up your water in like whatever pot you have, and then just stick that thermometer in there, and then just wait. And then after that, you just make tea at a time, and then eventually what happens is you start to replace kind of your impromptu tea gear that you've made with kind of the proper tea gear, just because it makes it easier. But at the same time, I think you're right. I mean, there is an easy way to drink this tea.
I'm just saying, don't run it directly under boiling water. That's the thing you don't want to do.
Like that is definitely the main takeaway from this whole process is let your water cool down after boiling.
Yeah.
And then
because then it's just going to taste burnt and bitter and like too strong.
Well, and then even going to some of the other teas like the Chinese oolongs and the high mountain oolongs and the pu'ers, this too hot phenomena still holds true. When the water's too hot, you can burn off flavor.
You can.
So I mean, so that rule applies everywhere, just specifically with Japanese green tea.
Almost every new tea drinker I see, like everyone who's getting into good tea, will go through this phase where they get really obsessed with water temperature.
Yeah,
I did this myself. I bought an electric kettle because I thought I had to. I don't really have one anymore. I kind of just feel it out.
I'm definitely at the stage. I'm about 4 years in, and like I'm
about
dorking
7 or
out.
8. Yeah,
I'm dorking out on temperature right now, and it's just because
it makes a difference. It really does, and you have to play with it.
Well, and in some of these lower temperature steeps, there's flavor, and there's also like beneficial and medicinal volatile organic compounds that come off in flavors and smells. And so when you use the too hot water, so
I also just personally myself prefer a more delicate tea.
Yeah,
that's just a personal taste thing for me.
Yeah.
So some people like stronger bitter tea, and there's no right or wrong. You just have to like learn your preferences.
Yeah, and then everybody's body and metabolism is different too. So
yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say about Japanese tea, and where can folks get this and other teas like this?
Yeah, I'm personally a really big fan of Japanese tea. Like Japanese tea is sort of where I started, like on the road to good tea. So of course I got really obsessed with parameters and brewing like right off the bat. But this tea and others like it, you can find in our shop on Pearl Street in Boulder, Colorado, or online at tridentcafe.com/teas. We have a few different Japanese green teas at the moment. I think a couple different varietals of sencha, a couple of varietals of gyokuro, and some higher end Japanese teas too.
And I know we're not talking about matcha, but you guys have
We sell
some of
matcha. We sell matcha too. Yeah.
the Trident Cafe and the Trident Tea sellers has some of the best matcha, I believe, in the United States.
I would say that the matcha that we sell is sort of the top end of the culinary grade. We're not super into like the specialty matchas just
Yeah.
yet anyway. I've had some really banging matcha though. But that stuff gets pretty expensive pretty fast. And it's not something that we are carrying right at the moment.
But if you like matcha and if you like a really good high quality matcha, I mean, it's like
Yeah.
top quality and it's $5 or $10 a
Our matcha is very good for what it is.
It's like $7 an ounce or something. I mean, it's
Yep.
very affordable.
Yep. Okay, everyone. Thanks again for joining us. Again, my name is Jake. I've been here with Josh. It's been a pleasure having you all. We'll see you guys next time.
Have fun drinking your tea.